Hi everyone, it's Esther here at the Purim Trust, and you may have seen recently that we have shared on our social media and YouTube that Andrew Womack Ministries have shared a brand new video, a short film about our work in the Philippines and those that we're helping, and a little bit more about my testimony. For those of you who don't know who Andrew Womack is, he's an American televangelist. He is a teacher of the word. He has Bible colleges around the world, and he's a discipler of many people. He has a great big following, and we are connected with Andrew Womack Ministries mostly because I went to one of his Bible colleges here in the UK. I spent 3 years there, and it was really transformative in my life, not just being under the word for 3 years, but also it gave me opportunity to go on mission trips, which is where I first went to the Philippines. And that time in my life at Charis Bible College was a time of great healing for me also. And it really set me on a path to my purpose, which is helping these people in the Philippines. So today we're going to have a little chat about that video. I believe it's going to be really helpful to us in our work. It's a great privilege also that this is the second short film or video that they've made about our work. And today I'm going to be joined by Andrea Keller, who is actually the creator of this second video, as she was with the first one. She's going to be joining us all the way from Colorado, and we're just going to have a chat about that video, how it's come about, how it's been put together. And here she is, Andrea. Welcome. It's so good to see you.
So good to see you. I wish it was in person, but I'll settle for virtual.
Yeah, because we've become quite good buddies over this time, and it's really special to be chatting to you about this creation of this second video. And you, of course, are the creative director, Andrew Womack Ministries Media, but also you've been on this journey with us through media, really, and connected with Andrew Womack Ministries through telling the story of the Purim Trust. So I thought it'd be great to chat with you about what you've put together and why and how. So thanks for joining us from Colorado with me in the UK. I wanted to just start again sharing about how important this connection with Andrew Womack has been to us as the Purim Trust. I just explained how the trip to the Philippines came about, but we've been so humbled and privileged that over the years, Andrew has really got on board with sharing about the Purim Trust and caring about the work that we do. For someone who has a really big international ministry with millions of people watching a lot of the media that you put out, we're really humbled that he has really got behind the Purim Trust to support us and what we've been doing. Because of this connection through Charis Bible College and the doors that it's opened for me. But this is the second video that you've made. They're called Destiny Story videos, aren't they? Could you just share with us a little bit, Andrea, about what a Destiny Story video is?
Yeah, so a Destiny Story video is basically a video on students who have gone through Charis Bible College and took the message that impacted their life and started applying to their own ministry. So the first one, it really followed you on your journey of healing emotionally from your traumatic childhood scars, and then with that healing, kind of finding what your destiny and purpose was, and through your mission trip to the Philippines, and then being able to bring that same healing to the children of the Philippines. So it was such a beautiful just testimony that you have, and an honor to be able to share it and try to, you know, tell the story that we can. I mean, our stories are so much bigger than a 7-minute video. So it was an honor to be able to do that, and then to be able to join you again on just the update on where you are now and where the ministry is at.
Yeah, so that first video was filmed back in 2022, sharing, as you mentioned, about difficulties in my childhood and how that healing had taken place. And that first video, I think, was released in 2023. And this second video sort of follows on from that. And the journey of what's been happening in between, and how sometimes it goes really well and sometimes not so much. But it's been amazing to see you have been the one telling both of those stories. So what were your first thoughts when you first started working on the first Destiny Story video? Because you received the content, which was actually filmed by your brother, Jeff. And
Mhm.
what is it in that first story that starts to sort of speak to you about what you're going to pull together?
Yeah, I'm trying to think because it was 3 years ago, but um, I think it was so incredible to be given your testimony and to see your heart and just I think Jeff he when he gave me the story, he's like, I have a story for you to do, and it's with Esther, and she reminds me of Wendy Darling from Peter Pan. And I thought that's just the perfect description of you, especially even thinking about you with the children, because Wendy Darling, she becomes a mother to the lost boys, and such a comforting presence, and that's exactly what you are. So just hearing your heart for these children, how you went on a mission trip, and it almost haunted you where you're back in the UK and you're thinking about these children. You're waking up in the middle of the night thinking, I need to do something, but who am I to do something? And to see that that didn't stop you. And I think that that's such a beautiful thing, because I think so many of us have this call, this passion within us of like, oh, I feel so almost obsessed with this one thing that I feel like God has put on my heart, and I don't really know what that looks like, but who am I to do it? And then we let it just in there. And it's like, why don't we actually really ask God and seek God on, like, okay, I'm not anyone that I feel is special. So this actually might be a God thing, because oftentimes he's going to call you to something bigger than you. And so I remember working on that story, and it was, at the time, it was like one of my favorite stories I worked on. And now that I have this second story, I'm like, and I was actually there to film in the Philippines. I think this last story is my favorite story I've worked on. But I remember just being so touched by seeing the the B-roll, the footage, the just impact of these children. And it's something to where when you work on a video, you feel like you know the person very well, because my brother was the one who interviewed you. And so I had like a little email communication with you asking for photos, but we never officially met. But I edited your story for so many hours that when I finally did meet you in person, I have to remind myself, I was like, we need to play this cool, because it feels like you know her very intimately. She's seen like a couple pictures of you. So, but it's wonderful just to see your heart and see the impact that you were making on the children in the Philippines. And I think the more I was just involved in how it became, I mean, I'm spending weeks, months on the story. It's something to where I'm like, yeah, we're making a difference in the Philippines. Then I realize I'm like, I'm not a partner. So like I'm like, I need to be making a difference in the Philippines. So it became something like, of course I'm going to sponsor a child. Of course I want to be a part of this mission. So I think that's the cool thing, is once I finished the video and we had it live on the website, I was getting updates because I was no longer just the video editor of that story, but now I was a sponsor of a child. So now I was getting updates and things like that. So, and I remember too, when I was working on the story, I was thinking, I was like, oh man, it would be so cool to go to the Philippines someday and like meet my sponsor child, or be able to see what that's like. But honestly, I didn't actually think that was going to happen, or I wasn't like, God, I'm believing you for this. It was something to where I thought that would be such a neat opportunity, but I also recognize like that's a very big trip. So when I was given the opportunity, when you asked me to come back in October of 2025, I was so humbled to be like, oh, okay, I I don't feel qualified to go on this. I feel like there's so many other people, and so um, I was very much like, God, this has to be a you thing. You have to show me exactly what you want, give me the right questions to ask, get me in the right mindset. Obviously, the protection, all those things. So it was such an incredible opportunity. So I feel like I kind of went all over the place, but I don't know if that answers your initial question.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting because even though you were the one editing the story, I felt a connection with you also, because it's a very vulnerable thing, isn't it? When you have interviews, so I had interviews with your brother and, a few hours worth of content of talking about so many different things, and many of them very deeply personal. You have to really be vulnerable to share your story. But then that is passed over to someone who you don't know. You don't set out any requirements of, please can you do this with the video. It's, here's the content, and you just do whatever. You're just handing it over to someone else to do whatever they want for it, for a different ministry. It can be a very vulnerable state to be in. You're just handing that over to God to do something with. But um and we were just in contact. But when you sent the drafts through to me of the first Destiny Story video, I felt like such a connection with you, because you had just done such a beautiful job of very sensitively, carefully um, putting a story together about me. And it could have gone anyway. It could have gone anywhere. You were free to do what you wanted to with that. And so I just felt this connection to you, because you understood my story and made it into something very impactful with a short space of time. But also then when you signed up to sponsor a child with us, we were all talking about it, and they're like, Andrea, who's editing this video, has signed up to sponsor a child. We understood that you believed in what we were doing, and you understand the why of what we were doing. So it also built a connection for me with you also. And so that video went out, and we saw an amazing response to it. And it really, I think, sort of opened up more sponsors coming to help us from the US and further afield in a way that hadn't before. And I think the visuals, if we can share visually what we're trying to do in the Philippines, it has a greater impact. That storytelling through visual media is so important to the work that we're doing, because I can tell people about it, but unless you can see it and you hear the flies and you picture the rubbish, that storytelling visually was really beautiful and helpful. So thank you for that. But yes, the exciting part was being able to invite you to come to the Philippines with us last year, as you shared, and you just coming for the full duration of a trip. I think we were gone sort of like 12 days overall. It was a big, full-on trip that we did. And can you share with us maybe what was sort of one of the most impactful? Which part of that trip had the biggest impact on you from your time in the Philippines with us, or the projects that you saw?
Yeah, I think this probably was the most drastic mission trip I've ever been on, in the sense of it being the very third world, very harsh living conditions, very upsetting. But in a way, it was probably one of the most joyful mission trips I've also been on. And I think that's the beautiful thing, is that, like, when when you partner with God, you can go through such darkness and have light and be light and even have joy. And so I think that's the interesting thing, is like, I remember walking when we went through Happy Land the first time, and seeing a dog, and one of it's like had its organs out. Like, there was very upsetting. You like look and you're like, oh, what am I looking at? This dog is mutilated and it's walking around, and things that are upsetting, seeing flies everywhere, seeing children be eating where the trash is, going rummaging through the trash. So just upsetting setting, but also being able to be that light, to where when children saw you, they were so happy and so grateful. And I think that is the most amazing thing, is this is also the mission trip where I have received so many gifts. A lot of times when you are being hosted from people host you, they will give you a present or something like that. But almost everywhere we went, when we would see a sponsor child, they would try and see what gift they could give. And it was so incredible, and it wasn't something of, oh, I owe you. It was, they were so grateful to have their lives impacted. And even for us, it might seem, oh, their lives are impacted, I don't see a difference. Well, for them, it is a huge difference. It might feel like only a drop in the pan for us, but to them, it's their mindset is being changed as well as their living conditions. And so I think it was just such a beautiful thing of almost at first feeling like, oh my goodness, this is a lot, this is intense, and seeing just the excitement and the joy that the children would bring, the proud mothers that were watching, when you would be interviewing a sponsor child. And I would look over and I would see just a mom just smiling, just so proud of her child, knowing that they're not going to be living the life that she lived, and that there is change coming. So I think that was that was something that was just really impactful to me, is that, like, I didn't come back from the trip and be depressed or be like, oh man, you know, I can't live this way, or, get into a mindset that's upsetting. It was something where I came back grateful, grateful for what I had, but then also just grateful to see the work that is being done, and to see that, I don't know, you can really have joy in any circumstance. And I think, we had so much fun just even getting in the car afterwards, where we would be, just decompressing of like all that we saw. So, sometimes it would be processing out loud things, but then also having a karaoke session, to where it's like we're going to have fun, we're going to enjoy each other. So it was such an incredible team, and it was for me too. I was the only American coming, and I had known you guys again, like, um I had known you guys through email and things like that, but it wasn't really. I didn't have that relationship to where it was like, yes, we saw each other all the time before we went on this trip. So I joined you guys, and it felt like such a family atmosphere. It felt so safe, and so it was such an enjoyable trip. I don't know. I'm so grateful for it. So
Well, we absolutely loved having you with us, and it felt like family, I think, because when you're on mission, you really see the best and the worst of, you're in the thick of it, aren't you? You're in the raw. There's no fake faces. You're going through every range of emotion. And I remember those moments in the van after we'd been to some of, the most challenging places in the Philippines. And there would be times when we couldn't speak. We were just so full of emotion, and times when we would all just be trying to verbally process what we'd seen. And then those moments of just release and enjoyment, singing karaoke, and just really all being thankful for what God is doing out there. And I think that was the hope for these projects, that you can become overwhelmed with the need constantly, but we hold on to that hope of what God is doing, through this work and through these projects, that, good things are happening. So it was wonderful to have you there with us for the full duration. But then, of course, Andrea, you go back to Colorado with 10 days worth of footage, filming pretty much all day. Talk me through how then you start to think about making a video from that. And we're not talking like a couple of minutes social media reel. I think this is an 8.5-minute video, but where do you start to make a video or a short film from so much footage?
yeah, I think, something for me, I think my biggest fear, and I always check my footage while I'm when I'm abroad as well, but I'm just like, Lord, please let everything be in focus. let everything, the audio come out. So I think that's always the thing that I'm holding my breath when I'm opening the footage. Is I'm so just not, I don't want to say anxious, but just cautious of all, like, okay, please let this have turned out. And then I'm like, okay, eyes are in focus. We look good. Okay. After we get over that hurdle, I think what I always try and do is listen to your interview, and I listen to it a lot. And I have the transcript of what you said. And then I just start highlighting things, obviously, really praying about, like, Lord, what is the story? What is the story that you want to have been told? And just seeing what pops out. I think looking at the footage is the most fun part because it's memories. But if you get too caught up in the footage, you can start trying to tell a story maybe that isn't really a story, but more of just pretty photos and pretty videos and things like that. So I think what, instead of just really focusing on, like, okay, what was it that Esther was sharing on her heart? And then I was going through some of your interviews that you were having with the sponsor children and the moms and things like that. And I was just noticing a pattern where, a parent would say, oh, yes, I'm a single mom here and I have 9 children, or I have 8 children, or, just a large amount. And we're all staying in this one room. And so it's a mom, and the mom isn't even saying it like it's a struggle. She's just kind of giving the fact of, like, yeah, I'm a single mom. We live here. This is what it is. And it was something that was repeated over and over and over again. And then I remember when we would be in the car and we'd be talking, we would find out of, like, oh, it was pretty common for um, the father to leave a mom and find a new family and things like that. And it was just a frustrating, upsetting situation. And then through talking to you personally, and in your interview, you shared your own just testimony about how you were going through being a single mom yourself and what that looked like. And it was something, just an interesting parallel that I was noticing of, in your first story, you had healing from childhood trauma and you were helping children. And then in this second trip, you were starting to help the moms before that, but just something that was really prominent was, this isn't about the children only, this is also about the mothers, the families. And so how that even was related to you, and how you were able just to kind of come alongside these women and show that, we kind of all have our struggles. Because I think that's the thing, is that um, the beautiful thing about humanity is that we all have struggled in some sort of fashion.
Yeah.
You might not experience this type of struggle, but you have experienced some sort of loss or grief. And that's where we can really reach out and do ministry. And so to kind of find that connection between your story and the story that we were seeing in the Philippines, that really helped me narrow down of, like, okay, what does God say about this? What's God's perspective on this, and what is the Purim Trust doing with these single moms? And then also, it's not just, that's the beautiful thing, is that we're not just meant to be serving God. God also wants to heal us as well. So even of just, like, what is the journey that you're going through? And you were so vulnerable and wonderful to share that. And I think that's the thing that's exciting, is that a lot of people watching this video aren't going to be able to maybe relate to being on the the trash heaps and trying to survive. That's Thankfully, that's not what the Americans and the Brits experience in their day to day. But a lot of people have experienced hurt and rejection, and some have experienced divorce, and trying to figure out how am I going to go about this, and also, like, God, how can I receive healing for this? And so I think that's what's really exciting, is that this is a twofold story. It's not just the Philippine story, but it's also your story. And then people can also apply that to themselves.
Which is so true, but I think what was so powerful, even for me watching it, Andrea, when you sent me the draft, again, we did, a lot of interviewing in the Philippines. I had no idea what you were going to come away with and put together. We talked about a lot of things. And when I saw the first draft, and for those of you who haven't seen the video yet, it is of me sharing about how I, have entered into this realm of single parenthood and not knowing how to do ministry and be a mum at the same time. But you have drawn these parallels that I had not even seen, how in the time of going through what I feel has been, a really difficult and challenging time, as you mentioned, of rejection and loneliness and, financial worry, at the same time, which I hadn't even realized, we were launching really within the same month actually that I got divorced, this women's training program, so many mums being single mums that we're helping. It really made me weep when I watched it, of how God, and it's not a surprise to me, but how God takes things that are broken, and if we allow him, he can use them for his purpose and make something beautiful and something good out of really difficult times. But it does require a level of vulnerability to share that, because if I'm honest, when I saw that first draft, I was sort of like, oh, I hadn't anticipated that it was going to be about, divorce and single parenthood. And there's so much shame connected with that subject, that I did have to stop. And I even, chatted to Nicola, who also works with me at the Purim Trust, of like, is this going to be beneficial for the Purim Trust? But also, can I do this? Can I share, so publicly something that's so difficult? And I found so much in this journey since the very beginning of the Purim Trust. God gives us a proposal of, do you want to say yes to this, or do you want to, not step in this direction? Do you want to not share this? And it was the same question in sharing about, abuse that I experienced as a kid, of, I could just keep this to myself. But I really feel that doing that, it's just a waste. It's really what the enemy wants us to do. Every time that shame comes in, it's really the enemy wanting us to shut up about what God can do in our life and has done in our life, to turn something bad into something beautiful for him. And so thank you for sharing that story, but seeing what was also going on at the same time, because I was so connected with it, I didn't see the parallels of these two stories. So I wondered at which point you saw that connection. I wasn't sure if it was when you were in the Philippines that you were like, oh, this is interesting. And it's wonderful that you saw it in the testimonies of the women in the Philippines also, who were experiencing something similar, although our lives are very different. I was wondering then, Andrea, how much time do you think you've actually spent on putting this video together?
It's a good question, because we filmed it in October, and I would say we finalized it probably in mid-April, and then was just doing little tweaks here and there. And since that time, I haven't just been fully focused on it, because I was leading a team, so I would be able to kind of have it be cooking in the background, which I think that's kind of the fun thing, is once you start on a project, even if you don't have the project in front of you, you're thinking about it as you go about your day. You're praying about it. And I think that's a nice thing too, is sometimes you just need to put a project to the side and be like, all right, Holy Spirit, I'm not going to have this in front of me, but I'm going to just put it right here, and you're going to help me think about it kind of as I'm going about my day. And oftentimes that is how I'll actually find solutions or hear from God, is when I'm not actively working on it, but I might be doing the dishes and then have a thought of, oh, we should try this. But I know it was 6 months, and I would say it probably took up about maybe about like 30-40% of my attention. So maybe we can say if I just had done it all together, maybe 3 months of
Wow.
constant attention.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I was wondering about the process of how you go about making this video. And you mentioned that you have the transcript and you're reading through things, and then you saw video clips of the other moms, but there's so much that goes on behind the scenes of a video like this. Could you talk us through also, Andrea, what other technical things are involved with that? I remember you mentioning in an email a few weeks ago, you were waiting for the composer to
Mhm.
compose music. I was like, wow. So talk us through some of the other elements that's involved with this kind of video making.
Yeah, so I guess I'm trying to, if I were to start from the beginning, I get all this footage and the interview, and you're sifting through it. So I think I try, like I said, like going through all the footage is kind of, it's the fun part, but it's the part that you try not to dwell too much on, because then you can almost be in the weeds. But I try to organize my footage and say, okay, this is when we were doing home visits. This is when we were at a church. This is when we were doing when we were handing out supplies. So organizing the footage like that. And then it is going through memory lane, and it's very specifically my perspective too, because, like this whole trip, I was looking through the camera lens. So it's an interesting, it's just interesting because you're literally rewatching your own memory in a way. And so that's always fun. And then going through your transcript and going through it a few different times, highlighting things and praying, because it can be a daunting task. It's not, I wish it was so much simpler than it is, but I think it's so much more rewarding, the fact that it takes time. So it's going through your transcript and being like, all right, Holy Spirit, like, what is it that you want me to share? What is it that you feel like we should share? And then also considering, in the back of my mind, when I was presenting you the first draft, I was praying, I was like, Lord, if there is anything that Esther does not want shared, I pray that you give her the strength to communicate that she doesn't just say like, oh, this is great, and then, be smiling through, just gritting her teeth about the video. I wanted you to feel as comfortable as you could. So that was just a prayer of like, I want this to be something that you feel comfortable and you're proud of. And then also, and there was that added pressure of like, okay, this isn't just Esther sharing her story. This is about, we can be getting sponsors. So this feels a little more time sensitive. So in my mind, it wasn't just let's just wait it out. It was, let's try and get this story done with excellence, in a quick fashion. So yeah, so I go through the transcript, and then I start piecing together the video, and then once I get a rough story, of what you were telling, I started going through the interviews and seeing, oh wow, we have quite a bit of interview segments where moms are sharing just they're giving what their living conditions are. And then, from there, I'm able to then go through the B-roll footage of all the children and things like that, and seeing how I can add that to the video, just to give really an accurate picture of what we were experiencing, showing things like chickens, and then you hear a rooster sound and things like that, which is fun. And then, yeah, I send it over to our composer, and so he goes through and he puts music to the video. He'll send me a draft, and I'll be like, yeah, or well, I feel like we need to go this route with the song. And then it goes to approvals, and I mean, there's so much more to it, but just trying to like go bullet points, as quickly as I can, of having you see it, and then having Andrew Womack see it, who's the founder of Andrew Womack Ministries, and then Stephen Bransford, and he's over the television department. So just having these different levels of approval and making sure that everyone's on the same page. And then it's also creating different versions for our website, for a conference venue, for television. So there's a lot of little boxes. So even when you're like, hey, everyone approved it, I think we're done, there's like those little boxes of you need to make a thumbnail, need to make a description, you need to make a title. So you're never fully done. It doesn't feel like, until all of a sudden you're like, okay, we got everything delivered, we are good. But yeah.
And I think what's interesting with this video, I noticed that's different with the first one, is there's also like a personal message from Andrew Womack towards the end of the video, which was an amazing surprise. Can you talk me through how that came about, Andrea?
Yeah, so it's funny because it's one of those things, like I was so like, all right, I want to get this video done by this date so we can get it posted. And I got an email because I sent it up to my upline, and Andrew really, he loved the video, and he was like, I want to endorse what Esther is doing. And it's funny because, part of me is like, oh, okay, that's gonna send us a little a little backwards. Like we're gonna have to go film that and then edit it and then redo the music so that it can fit. Thankfully, it really didn't take much time at all, additional time. But I think the beautiful thing is for him, he has so many ministries that have sprawled out from students. And one thing Andrew says is that, like, he's called to do what he's called to do. So he's called to do discipleship, he does television ministry, he has a Bible college. He's not called personally to go into the Philippines and help mothers and children, but he wants to empower those who are called. And so it's wonderful to where he saw this video and he wanted to make sure that his partners know, hey, I fully endorse Esther. I am so for this ministry. Go and be a part of it. And I think that's the great thing, because I would say, like, having gone to the Philippines, I loved that experience, but I'm not a missionary to the Philippines. It wasn't something to where God's like, yeah, I want you to do this full time. But that's the nice thing, is that the ministry that I'm doing doesn't just stop after I finish the video. It continues because I'm a sponsor, I'm a partner. And so that's the beautiful thing about partnership. And that's what Andrew knows about partnership, is that partners enable us to do the ministry. If we don't have partners, we can only do so much. And so it's great that he saw that and he wanted just to empower and encourage and to be like, hey, all right, let's come together and let's make more things happen in the Philippines. So yeah, that's not always something that Andrew does. I'm trying to think if there's another video that I've had where Andrew's specifically requested to do an endorsement. So from videos I personally have produced, that's not the case. So it is something when it's put on his heart to personally endorse a video.
Which is just so incredibly humbling, Andrea. Just to have someone who has a massive international ministry to say, I think he says sort of, I know Esther personally, and I really encourage you to get involved. I mean, even someone with that kind of ministry, just sharing your website, excuse me, is so humbling. It's such an honor. It's not a privilege that I take for granted at all. But also what I love about Andrew is that he doesn't shy away from promoting other people and what they're doing. He uses his platform to really openly share about other people's work. But I do love the fact that I really see this as the favor of God as well, because we don't go knocking on doors, asking for people to do that. So when someone does, it's so humbling. And we're so grateful to Andrew that he has continued to do this with the Purim Trust for several years now. And it's such a help to our work. And we are really privileged just to be connected with him and for him to sort of give us the stamp of approval. The impact of that, really, we've seen over the years of more and more people coming to help with our work. It has a direct impact on those that we're helping in the Philippines. And that's ultimately what all of this is about. It's really great to have people like yourselves share a story about me, but it's not really about that. It's how God has taken a broken life and used it for some good. He's using it for his glory. And we've just seen, thanks to your storytelling, Andrea, and your incredible gift and skills with the previous Destiny story video, we saw many people coming to help through sponsorship, through donations, through partnering with our work in a way that we'd not seen before. And the knock-on effect of that is more lives being helped and more lives being transformed also. So I pray that the same thing happens with this Destiny story video. Firstly, that more people come to help so we can help, support more children, more students, and more women. But also personally, I pray that there'll be other mothers really watching this video, knowing that it doesn't matter how you've been rejected or let down or things have fallen apart or you're trying to juggle things on your own. It's really that God still has a great plan and purpose for single mums too, and wants to heal that that brokenheartedness. So I think your video is really going to help in many ways. Can I ask you, Andrea, as we finish, what do you think will stay with you the most, or what's your biggest takeaway from this interaction we've had with the Purim Trust, from the first video to coming to the Philippines, the second video? Is there one particular takeaway that you have of some impact from this connection we've had together?
Oh my goodness. I'm trying to think if I can narrow it down, but I think the beautiful thing that I do love about video work is because you're working with a medium where you're listening to someone's voice and message over and over and over again. You get ministered to, even if you're not, even if I'm tired and I'm not in the mindset of like, Lord, just minister to me right now. If I'm like, all right, well, we're going to get the job done and do this. And hearing your story, I think over and over and over again, of just recognizing, I think for me, something that's been huge is like now I'm pregnant. And so I'm going to be a mom. And so it was such a beautiful encouragement of God. God can use you regardless of where you're at, of being like, seeing the work that you're doing, and you're a mom and your daughter is lovely and she was with us and we had such a fun time, and really to show that it is part of who you were made to be. It wasn't, oh, well, God accidentally gave you two separate callings to be a mom and to run the Purim Trust. It was like, no, this was intended for you to be both and to do it well. And God has brought you such incredible help, such an incredible team. And so I think that was just something that has been so encouraging, that through my pregnancy, I'm listening to you just keep on continuing to say of like, God has equipped you and enabled you to do both. And you're really empowering women and mothers, and really any listener of like, hey, the task might seem overwhelming and it might seem too big, but nothing's too big for God. And honestly, if it is big, that's probably a good thing, because that means you're on the right path. That means that you really have to lean into God. And so I think that's something that in this season has been just a really, just a very personal thing of, okay, I'm a mom now, or, I don't know what the, people wish you a happy Mother's Day when you're pregnant. And you're like, well, am I technically a mom if the baby's not in my arms yet? But I'm entering into motherhood, and I am still going to be continuing to do video work. I'm still continuing to do the things that I feel that God has placed on my heart. And it's just been wonderful just to see someone do it so beautifully and so just lovingly. Again, I've just seen you be a mother to the children in the Philippines, to see you be a mother to your own daughter has been such a testament and so encouraging. And so I'm looking forward to motherhood myself. So thank you for being that wonderful role model.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. You also are going to be an incredible mum. And I just add to that that none of this is from a position of feeling capable of or being equipped or having incredible skills of, oh yeah, I can, I can run a charity and I can be a mum. It's constantly, like you said, leaning in. And I always want to share that it's not from some amazing skill set. It's purely by the grace of God. So I know that if God can do that in my life, then he'll do it in anyone's life. And we're excited for you, Andrea. We bless you in the rest of your pregnancy. Also, the purpose of this video is to draw people to Andrew Wommack Ministries as well. I would really recommend, if you haven't heard of Andrew, if you haven't checked out his material, he has some incredible Bible teaching which will really help transform your life. So you can go to awmi.net and check out Andrew. He is very dear to us, but most of all, his revelation on the gospel is transformative. So you can, if you haven't seen this second Destiny story video about the Purim Trust and Youth Thread, you can go to our website, thepurimtrust.org. You can also find it on Andrew's website, as I mentioned. But most of all, Andrea, this video was your concept and your creation. What message would you just like to share as the video goes out?
Yeah, I think it's something to where Esther says it so humbly, where she's like, if God can do, how do you word it? Where you're like, he takes not much at all. He can use not much at all, because that's me. And I'm always like, whenever I hear that, I'm like, oh, Esther, you're so incredible. Please know that you are so loved and capable. But I understand the sentiment, of like, hey, God can take you wherever you're at. He just needs a willing vessel. And so I think that's the beautiful thing. And so for those who watch this video, who are inspired to partner with a Purim Trust, but you're like, I just don't know, what I should do. And it's God can take whatever little you have and make it great. He just needs a willing vessel. So I encourage you to be a willing vessel and to partner and take this ministry further than we ever thought it could go. So I think that's the beautiful thing, is really not limiting God in this and seeing it just go further and further.
Amen. I agree. So go and watch the video. If you want to get involved with our work at all, the places where we need help right now are with this very women's training program, which features in the video. We are looking for sponsors of women to provide that training for them, and also sewing machines. We've really seen that this project is changing lives and is providing for the children that we sponsor, through the mothers becoming self-sufficient and being able to provide for their own children, which is something I can relate to really strongly. It's having a big impact, and those are the places that you can help us right now. But for now, thank you, Andrea, for joining us from Colorado and chatting through this video, and we will keep you updated, Andrea, with how it's helping our work, and we hope that everyone else enjoys watching it. So thank you, Andrea.
Oh, thank you. It's been a pleasure.